does come down to risk, because it does all depend on the actual investment that you hold. As I mentioned before, there's very much, most people now have sort of multi-asset portfolios. They could have something like, Camilla and Alex have spoken about, to provide a level of income. They could have a portfolio managed by a company like ourselves. And I think one of the most important things I ask clients is, what is their number? How much do they need in order to turn around and say, you know what, I could actually retire tomorrow. I don't choose to, but I know I've got enough money to retire on. But I'll carry on doing some part-time work, interim work, whatever it may be. And that sort of conversation with business owners is probably one of the most interesting conversations to have. Because there's lots of research done in America. The Wall Street Journal actually published a survey which looked at business owners, and they all said, my business is my pension. Now, if you tried to sell that business at a time like 2008 when the market has dropped, then you're not actually going to get enough money to provide for your lifestyle. Also, from an emotional point of view, you're not actually going to sell that business for the price you think you should get for it, so you may carry on working. So I do a lot of work really of planning around what is that number. And I suppose one of the most important things is actually talking to clients about risk. Because if you wanted to generate, say, £5,000 a week, the starting point would be, if you were provided with a 5% level of return on that on your monies, you'd need something like £5 million in order to provide you with that £5,000 per week. But if you actually increase your risk, then essentially the amount of money you do need comes down. And there's been some recent pension changes which allows you to, and we talk about the Great British Workforce Revolution. We've been working on what's called the pensions revolution. From now on, you could actually draw all your money out of your pension scheme in one go. And whilst no one's, or very few people are going to do that, it actually gives you the ability to define how you draw money out of your pension scheme. And when you get to age 55, you could actually draw money out of your pension scheme at a higher level than you normally would, knowing that when you're 75, you're actually going to not need as much money because you're not as fit, you're maybe not travelling as much. So what we try and do is work with people to work out what they're going to need at future time. And I keep going back to the multi-asset approach. And the reason I say that is because Matty Ellie Woods as a business started out of providing advice to business owners. And part of the advice we gave was to do with tax advice. And most of our clients have a pension scheme in which they own property which they rent to themselves. So their business rents property from their pension scheme. We've also provided loans to those companies so that they can reinvest in themselves. And whilst it's not quite the sharing economy, what we've found is that business owners aren't really interested in paying money to Legal & General on a monthly basis. They want some control and some added value from their investments. So as more and more peer-to-peer lending comes out, there's no reason why within a pension scheme you can start purchasing shares in a private company. You could buy shares on Asset Match, which was talked about earlier today. You could actually do some peer-to-peer lending. Who knows, you might be able to buy a car parking space and rent that out. But the way that the industry changes, I think as investment managers we have to grasp that there are other areas to make investment returns, and we try and complement those other areas by taking a sort of common sense view, and we try to give clients common sense investment areas which are not just put 90% in the stock market and 10% in bonds and that's it. We look at things like property loans, secured loans to companies. So we're very sort of open-minded in trying to get you to that magical figure of your number, and we work with you really to find out what those figures are going to be.
And looking at where you use the opportunities today, is it higher yielding FTSE 100 stocks if you want to generate income as opposed to, so let's assume you're not going to lose cash for growth.
Yeah.
But you want, is it corporate bonds? Is it property? Where are you
I'd say
suggesting those slightly higher risk, higher income people should be?
Yeah. And if you're looking for yield, and let's say in an ideal world the actual portfolio doesn't fall in value, all you do is get a yield, then you're probably looking at still commercial property We have a commercial property fund that pays 6.25% yield. And if you then invest in, let's say, some FTSE 100 index stocks or even around the world and try and get around about a 4% yield, they're the sort of figures you're talking about, really. I think bonds, the yield on bonds is starting to rise a little bit, but if you were to compare that to the returns you get on equity and also the yield you get on equity, I would probably plump more for an equity portfolio than a bond portfolio presently.
And so equities is the way. And is that because are you taking a view on interest rates and inflation?
I think if naturally inflation starts to creep up over the next number of years, I think companies will have to start paying a higher yield, so they'll have to be working harder for their shareholders. So I think yield will potentially go up and keep pace to an extent with inflation. So I think still, equities are a place to hold a proportion of your portfolio for pure yield.
And I'm not sure, do you have much about, so have you looked into tax breaks, so EIS, SEIS schemes?
Yeah.
That's also an interesting area. How does that work in terms of, are you seeing evidence that people are actually making money out of using these schemes?
Yeah, I mean, a number of EIS schemes have been running now for a number of years. So we've seen clients who've invested in an EIS over a period of 3 years. They don't always actually, I suppose, mature in 3 years. Because you're investing in essentially a number of companies or one particular company. There has to be an exit strategy for that trust. But we're finding that there are some decent returns in an EIS portfolio that you can take the proceeds from after, say, a 4-year period. And I think that, again, if you, not putting all your eggs in one basket, if you use that as a tax planning device, and if you are paying a lot of tax for, say, this particular year, and you invest in an EIS portfolio, because of the tax rate you get up front, you can reinvest that tax rate into something else or pay something off a mortgage, whatever that may be. And if you treat the EIS investments as a return of that capital that you paid, then I think the EIS market can work for a number of clients, because you'll get your money back and you'll have the tax break. And that's how I sort of push it with clients.
And by that, but you mean going after sort of the more established brand name funds rather than just doing individual company EISs?
Yeah, there are some opportunities for individual companies. There's lots of EIS investments now, and you've probably come across lots and lots of them in the press. Lots of breweries, for instance, are trying to raise money for EIS, and you have to take a view whether you think the brewery market, particularly craft breweries, are making some good returns. But a number of EIS schemes will have a spread of investments, so that you're actually going to be able to take the hit if one company does go bust, and look for another number of companies that make a return.
I think it's a really lovely story. I don't know how many of you have heard of Brewdog? Not everyone. How many of you have heard of the Brewdog fundraising which is going on at the moment? Okay, basically it's a craft beer brand, bit alternative, Scottish, and they're currently doing a fundraising round at a pre-money valuation of £350 million, which is, I think you could probably buy Green King for £50 million. Anyway, but they're very confident that their growth prospects mean that they command this pre-money valuation at the moment. But what's interesting is they're doing another thing, which is sort of a bit of the merging with the sharing economy, where if you buy 2 shares in their company for £97.50, you get a 5% discount on their beer sort of forever. So I asked my team, so how much beer do people drink of this stuff? They said, well, I usually get through 4 pints a week. Works out that actually, by buying those 2 shares, they effectively pay for the shares in the discount on the beer within 12 months. So what's not to like about that? Because the shares for free, even if it only becomes wallpaper, it's still rather good. So I do think this sort of blending of the sharing economy with the investment world is all becoming much more complicated than the old linear way of you did your investments, you did your this, you did your that, and we all have to sort of try and think round more these issues. I just want to sort of slightly close up on one thing, which is, particularly Camilla and Alex, effectively we're big entrepreneurs, and obviously one of the ways you can make a load of money is by setting up a business. How many of you would actually like to set up a business? Whether you're going to do it or not, how many of you would like to? There's some more and more hands going up. Okay, so you talked about Anthony, and as I assume it's a matter of fairly public record, Just Park's just done a fundraising. So Anthony in 2006 had his idea, presumably worth virtually nothing at that point. What was the pre-money round for Just Park, and what stake did Anthony have and what's his hard work? So Stephen didn't think that was a job, that was his passion.
Sure. So, as I mentioned before, the business used to be called Park at My House and was founded by Anthony Eskenazi in 2006. We've had a very interesting tale in terms of fundraising over the last few years. So, originally we did a seed round with BMW, and an angel investor came in. Then we did a corporate VC round with a venture capital fund called Index Ventures. That have been in a lot of the sort of world-class European tech companies in the last 10-20 years. And very recently we did a crowdfunding round, an equity crowdfunding round on a platform called Crowdcube. And it's actually the largest equity crowdfunding round for a tech startup ever, in fact. So that was £3.7 million at a £20 million pre-money valuation. And yeah, so I mean, I can't really talk too specifically to what Anthony does or doesn't know, it's really slightly private, I'd say. But I mean, the company's growing well, and obviously current and past shareholders benefit as the valuation of the business increases. So yeah, our round actually wasn't EIS for some sort of slightly boring reason, but the vast majority of them are EIS or SCIS. And I think the investment opportunities vary on these platforms. We're much more of a late stage business. We had BMW behind us, we had a big VC behind us, and investors were very conscious that although they're paying a higher price, there'd also be considerable amounts of due diligence done on the business by extremely experienced people. Whereas the average business going to this platform is much earlier, much higher risk, and also a much lower valuation.
Thank you. So I'm going to guess that Anthony's bond is worth virtually nothing to being worth a few million anyway. So it's not
We're doing it. We've got a nominated today.
Okay. Well, I'd like to thank you very much. Is there any? We are running a tiny bit late, but if there's one quick question, we'll take it. Anyone got anything burning to say? No. Good. You're being excellent. Right. I'd like to thank you all very much. I hope you found that interesting. I did, and thank you.